Forget about the regular season. It's done. Playoff season is finally among us. We are getting fully into the swing of it on the AV Club. And welcome this week's edition. We have the full squad back. And I say that knowing that Ben, myself and Craig have been slightly selfish in the last couple of weeks. We've been recording at times that suit us two that weren't working over the Christmas and leaving you out in the cold. But you're finally back into the tent. And you don't even have a playoff game to look forward to this week because your Seahawks are number 1 seed.
Glad to be back. To be honest with you, I don't think I could have recorded with how stressful the last few weeks have been with the NFL, and that it took the Seahawks getting a bye week for me to be able to, like, you know what, I can come on and talk casually here.
And a last minute edition. For us, it was a last minute edition because myself and Ben were preparing to go for this completely on our own. But Craig was like, "You boys are not having fun without me. I've been on the Sunday. I was on last week's Thursday preview. I was on the Sunday instant reaction, but I'm not leaving my boys in the AV Club." Craig, how are you?
I'm good. The season's over, so as a Giants fan, I can now decompress and start to get annoyed at the fact that we have the 5th overall pick when 2 weeks ago we had the number 1 overall pick.
Well, the top pick quarterbacks is something we're going to get on later on when we talk about the matchup between Indiana and Oregon. But before that, I'd like to remind everybody that the AV Club was brought to you in association with the TapHouse Bar and Grill in Ranelagh. We always say it's TapHouse Red Zone, and it was very much TapHouse playoffs. Sunday, Bills-Jags game at 6 o'clock, and then Niners-Eagles at 9:30. A fantastic doubleheader for you to sink your teeth into in that place. Sink your teeth into some good wings as well. And look, nobody really does dry January. You might as well get out and enjoy the NFL playoffs. Whether you're just staying dry from the fatty foods or from anything else, just get out there and enjoy it. Post Super Bowl is when the diets really have to start. All right, let's get started in the sort of big thing that we need to sort of come into a form of a coronation, because I have a quick correction to make first of all. By the way, because one of the moments we had when we did our studio show, and myself, Brian, and Connor on Sunday, is when I turned around and I said that when the Pope was elected in 2005, the Seahawks lost 4 games and went to the Super Bowl. And the same thing happened in 2013. I was wrong. In both those instances, the Seahawks only lost 3 games in 2005, went to the Super Bowl. They only lost 3 games in 2013 when there was a new Pope elected and went to the Super Bowl. And Ben, it's happened again. The Seahawks, on the year that the Pope has been elected, the Seahawks are the number 1 seed, and they've only lost 3 games. I don't know. It's all getting too creepy. You must be starting to believe that it's all trying to start the lineup a bit.
If anybody missed the live show that you guys did, Connor asked while you guys were talking about Seahawks and talking about this happy coincidence of the Pope getting elected and Seahawks making Super Bowls. I have not been going to Mass, but I might just start, depending on how the next few weeks go. So we'll see. I could be made a believer come in the middle of February. But yeah, 3 losses on the season. When a lot of people had them kind of same as they were last year, 9-8, 10-7. I think that's where a lot of the projections were. I think Shane, you were one of the only believers in the Seahawks at the start of the season. So thank you for that.
Myself and Kieran Boyle were banging the drum. I think I can't remember what I picked the Seahawks or the Rams to win the division, but I was
definitely pick the Seahawks. I'll always remember that, Shane. The real one.
Yeah, we were starting to come back to all these receipts now of all these great picks we made at the start of the season. I also picked the Patriots to go to the playoffs, but not winning the division. And I stand by my fantastic foresight that the Lions weren't going to make the playoffs. However, on the side of things, I did say that the Vikings would. So anyway, that's a side self coronation. But I mean, in terms of what we can expect from the Seahawks, it's funny. I mean, we go back and we're talking so much about that matchup against the Niners last week. And look, it's one of the great rivalries of the 21st century. It's funny because the Seahawks have only been in the NFC since the year 2002. Interesting quirk of their history. But we talk so much about what does it mean for the Niners to get home field advantage? What does it mean for them to be able to host it all the way through to them completing their Super Bowl run? It matters a lot for the Seahawks on paper, at least, because not only in terms of the 12s and the home field advantage that we know that they have, but just not being able to have to fly from coast to coast. The Seahawks are right up in the Pacific Northwest. They're not near anybody. Their nearest team is San Francisco, and that's still hours and hours south of them. Like that matters a lot to them. So I just wonder, like, did you sense a real sense of motivation to try and seal that, knowing the importance of the number one seed, because all 3 times that the Seahawks have been the number one seed in the NFC, they have made the Super Bowl. It counts up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, look, I don't think home field advantage in a lot of places matters as much as it used to. But Seattle is one of those places where you can really feel it still in the year 2026. But they've been deemed as road warriors all year, and they've been winning countless road games all year. So you look at they come in, they lose that game to the Niners. If they did, they would have went to the 5 seed, if I'm correct, and they would have played the winner of the NFC South. And you're looking at that being so strong on the road and facing an opponent you've beat before and almost beat when they were much better when back at the start of the season in the Bucks. You liked your odds. Now you get home field advantage for however long you make it through the playoffs. You get the bye week. Either way, I wasn't worried, but it's much nicer to come out on top of the NFC. This is, as a Seahawks fan, this last few years, this is my first time seeing them like as a full-fledged fan, not just a kind of watching a Super Bowl once a year. This is my first time seeing them be the number one seed. So that's a nice change. I think I might go out and buy the NFC West division winners t-shirts that's going on sale at the moment. But you look at us and you look at Denver across in the AFC being that number one seed, and things turned out pretty well the last time that was the case.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Well, I'm sure that's something we might get back to. I think I am right in saying the Seahawks are the betting favorite for the Super Bowl. I wonder how much their home field advantage is playing into that mindset. But it's funny because I look back and we talk so much about the Seahawks and the 12s and all this kind of thing. But I remember last year, like the Seahawks home record in Seattle was 3-6. They were 7-1 on the road last year. This year they're 6-2 at home. Significant improvement, but they're still, they only lost once on the road. That road warriors tag is clinged on to Seattle in a way that it hasn't done, in the past. And Craig, as we know, you're a great man for compiling statistics, and you don't do bullet points. You have pages upon pages and graphs upon graphs. You've been looking into the importance of home field advantage and the extent to which that might affect Seattle in particular. We will talk about Denver, I think, and maybe next week when we're looking ahead to when they have to host whoever it may be in the AFC, because the Mile High is significant home field advantage as well. So let's get the NFC home field advantage number one seed out of the way first. I feel like that was such a big talking point heading into this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the way that Seattle dealt with the 49ers meant that, it was nothing than deserved. Everyone was bigging up that 49ers team as the run that they were on and how Brock Purdy had been since he'd been back. And, that they dealt with them handily. But if you do have a look, and a lot of these stats that I'm going to read out are regular season stats, so obviously it's not really going to take effect maybe as much in the playoffs because you do tend to get a much higher percentage of home teams winning in the playoffs. If you look at the regular season, it has dropped in recent years. It sat around the sort of 5.73 to 5.67 mark in the terms of the winning percentage, and that dropped to 5.32 last year. Now this year, it has dropped a little bit more. 142 to 122 is the split between wins and losses at home. Every team in the division. Playoff teams, 84 wins, 32 losses. So you can see that the playoff teams, the teams who have gone, are good at home as well as being good away. However, there are 6 teams who are 5-3 at home this season. Green Bay, the Eagles, the Steelers, the Chargers, the 49ers, and the Panthers. So the Panthers, the Eagles, the Steelers are all about to host home divisional game or home wildcard games, and none of them have actually been that good.
Yeah,
home
like 5-3 is quite middling. I mean, you can imagine like in each of those individual cases. I mean, what was it like? Carolina, fair enough, they managed to beat the Rams at home, as in Carolina. It's obviously a significant part of when you had the home advantage they've been trying to build into this Saturday's game. Interesting, by the way, that the Houston Texans for the first time ever are not on the wild card spot, not on the early Saturday spot in a wild card weekend. It's the first time that's ever happened. They're going to be playing late on Monday night. We'll be reflecting on that this time next week. But I think it's an interesting one, Craig. Like, I don't know. I mean, do you think Seattle are a special case in terms of how you felt about the importance of their home field advantage? I mean, I still feel a bit dented about their regular season experience last year in terms of how strong I see that. I know Ben was saying that in general, home field advantage probably doesn't matter as much as it does anymore. You know, we can talk about various societal changes as to why that's the case, but you think Seattle, there's a couple of those teams like LA, do they really care about home field advantage? No, but it's nice for them to not go on the road. San Francisco makes sense. Philadelphia, I heard somebody suggest that Philadelphia are better off playing the road because their own fans won't be on their own back. You know, it's almost like at least they can get away and go on holiday somewhere. And, you know, maybe that's why they didn't really care about getting the 2 seed. You know, Chicago are definitely going to build into their home field advantage when they play against Green Bay. That's a huge part of, you know, of the way I look at that game in particular. But Seattle, you know, is still this incredible force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. And you know, Seattle, maybe it's a little bit cliche, and you know, it gets banged on about a little bit too much, maybe compared to some other places. But the 12s are a thing in Seattle, and that is something momentum-wise, crowd behind you that can carry you through, especially when, like you say, they're not a fan base like the Eagles who throw snowballs at Santa Claus. So, you know, that kind of gives them a little bit of a plus as it is. So, but you know, Seattle, like you said, 8-2 at home this year. 6-2 at home in their 8 games this year. They also have a positive margin of victory of 10.4 across those games, which is, I think, one of the highest. I think the Rams have 10.8. Jacksonville, 15.8 points. It's ridiculous. Apparently the Jags play really well at home. But I do think that Seattle are the team. This might be a little bit of a spoiler for something that I've had in my head a little bit here, but I do think that Seattle are the team to beat, and I can't see a lot of people doing it.
All right, here's the problem for you, Ben, right? Every time we've sat here on this forum and given praise to somebody, the Niners, we gave so much praise to them last week, lost. The Colts, we gave so much praise for the amazing season they've had. They're not even in the playoffs. Who else have we cursed? I feel like we've cursed everybody going by. So this isn't me trying to put a hex on Seattle, but I mean, it's not, you know, I think the Pope.
It's okay. You can put whatever bad juju you want in Seattle this week. We're not playing. It's okay.
I think the Pope's good juju probably outweighs our bad sort of presence.
Just before we move off the Seattle, you know, home field advantage and stuff like that, have you seen the opponents you guys are playing next year? I know we're jumping a bit ahead.
Oh, the Patriots are playing next year. Have I seen them?
The Patriots and the Giants are both coming to Seattle to play. So you guys can let me know this time next year how you guys got on at home and see if the home field advantage mattered at all.
You've triggered me now, so I'm going to get on this. This is a nice little sidebite that I didn't do, right? Right? Here's a real test, and I hope the Patriots end next year still as AFC East champions, just to shut everybody up about the importance of strength of schedule. I say that even though later on in this podcast, I will give my reasons to why I don't think Drake May is the MVP, right? This is the list of opponents the New England Patriots to face next year. Divisional opponents, the same home and away. Our road games are Chicago, Kansas City, Detroit, Jacksonville, which as you just said, Craig, they played exceptionally well at home, the LA Chargers, the New York Jets, and the Seattle Seahawks. Those are our road games. And at home, we've played the Raiders, who we lost to at home this year, the Steelers, who we already also lost to at home this year, the Packers, the Broncos, and the Vikings, as well as the Bills, Dolphins, and Jets. If it wasn't for the fact that we're in the same division as the Dolphins and the Jets, that was a complete gauntlet. I haven't even looked at who the Giants have to face next year. Is it similarly? I mean, like the NFC, the AFC East being matched with the NFC North and the AFC West is not the pairing that you want. That's the perfect combination of bollocks that you were saying as you're sitting back looking at the strength schedule. I think the Miami Dolphins have a similarly difficult run. So thanks for reminding me of that, Ben. I was at peace for most of today, knowing that I didn't have to think about how difficult next year was, because I'm only just thinking about beating the Chargers on Sunday night.
I don't think I've ever been trash talked 9 months in advance.
Here we go. I have the Giants. The Giants have to play away to Detroit, Houston, Indy, the Rams, and the Seahawks. Not quite as difficult, but still not easy either. And then at home to the Niners.
Remember who you're talking about, yeah?
The Giants. Yeah. Do you know what? Now that you said that, so the Giants are going to blow 20-point leads against Detroit, Houston, Indianapolis, the Rams, and Seahawks.
I can see. I think I had a very early look at it, and I can see 3 wins. I think there's the Saints, and there's 2 other teams at home that I think we can probably beat next year.
And I hold off on the Saints. If you heard Shane the other night,
yeah. I was going to
say, big believer in the Saints.
So the home games the Giants have next year include the Cardinals, the Browns, the Saints, and the Titans. You know what I mean? And the Commanders might be beatable. You have a great record at home against the Cowboys now after beating them on Sunday. Do you know what I mean? It's all there.
Jackson Dart, run it back.
That'll be a week 1 game of Sunday Night Football. Mark it down now. Anyway, sorry, that's a really, really big detour away. So myself and Craig have spoken at length about who we think should be MVP and Coach of the Year. Between the 3 of us now, we're going to very briefly make our picks as to who our MVP and Coach of the Year are. Again, we don't need to dwell on it too much if we feel like we've already sort of explained our reasons. But then afterwards, we will briefly pick out our offensive and defensive rookies of the year. So, Craig, MVP.
Stafford will win it, but I'll be upset if Trevor Lawrence doesn't get a couple of votes.
Okay, interesting. Bren?
You've already alluded to it, the fact that you're not picking Drake May. So do you know what? I'm going to give him his flowers. I think people don't want to give it to him because he's in year 2, and Stafford's on his way out, and they want to see him get an MVP. But I do think Drake May and the team he's got around him, I think it says a lot more about what Stafford's done this year. Even though Stafford's played great, I picked Drake May.
So I've listened to Bill Simmons, if anybody's unaware of him, he's a boss. He's a Boston guy. Obviously, he runs the Ringer and all this. I listened to his podcast, and he says he's not a Boston homer, and then he just becomes one. But he was talking about, I don't get how Stafford is being considered in the same league as May. When you consider the quality of defense that May has faced, they forget about the quality of team, quality of defense that May has faced. The Browns obviously balancing that up a bit. The fact that the Rams have a top 3 offensive line, and Stafford is thrown to Puka Nacua, who is Drake May thrown to only really, you think about Stephon Diggs, who comes alive depending on the game. I still look back at it and say, look, I've just been too impressed with the quality of Matt Stafford over the course of the year. I don't want the recency bias of those 2 games that he dropped to go against him, so I'm going for Matt Stafford. Coach of the Year, Ben.
I won't give Mike Vrabel his flowers on that, even though he's done exceptionally well this year. And as much as it pains me to say it, I got to give it to Kyle Shanahan. For the amount of injuries that team's gone through, to still end up in Week 18 playing for the division, playing for the number 1 seed, to not have your starting quarterback for quite a considerable amount of games and winning games with Mac Jones, it was extremely impressive. Even though I'm not a fan of the Niners, I got to give Kyle Shanahan his flowers.
Craig?
I'm still on the Mike McDonald train, but I think Vrabel wins it. You know, both finished 14-3, both have huge plus points. Vrabel helped turn May into an MVP caliber player, and that team have really turned things around. McDonald, dominant defense and winning the toughest division in the league counts for something.
I'll give it to Ben Johnson. Not only did he bring the Chicago to the playoffs, the fact that he left Detroit means that Detroit aren't in the playoffs. Talk about, and obviously don't use the most valuable coach, but talk about having value. That's the guy I'm giving it to. All right, here's what we haven't maybe talked about much, but in terms of our offensive and defensive rookies of the year, Craig, I'll start with you first. You can give both your offense and defensive picks.
I'll start with defense because I think this is a shocker because everyone will expect me to be a homer, but I'm giving it to Carson Schweitzinger from the Browns. I mean, he's played 95% of the defensive snaps in his rookie season. He's got 18 pressures, 3 sacks, 144 tackles, an interception, and 1 penalty. Like, that is outstanding.
Oh, it is. He is the runaway favorite for this, I think, for a reason. This has been a huge part of that Cleveland defense. So yeah, I'm not arguing with you there. Offensive Rookie of the Year.
McMillan will win it because he has 1,000 yards and they're in the playoffs. But I will be a homer now, and Dart should win it because he's 4-8 in his starts. He's on a poor team. He has 24 total touchdowns, passing and rushing, 5 interceptions. Like, the man has literally been the Giants this year.
Yeah, but would giving him that award not just be a prize for not protecting yourself? Like, no, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Here's this great player. Oh, by the way, he's got a concussion for 50% of his games, or whatever the stat was.
If I get into that, we're here for an hour, because I think the media spin on Jackson Dart's injury history is malpractice at its highest level, because he's actually only had 1 concussion. The reason he's been checked so many times is because the refs don't want to see him out there for some reason. He fell on his shoulder and got a concussion check.
Is it because I saw what happened to Cam Scadaboo? It was like, I don't want that to happen again. I don't know.
Maybe. I love Jackson Dart. That's all I'm saying.
My Offensive Rookie of the Year is not Travion Henderson. Surprise, surprise. I'm giving it to Tyler Shook. What a guy. Like, in terms of rookie, I've taken over 17 games. Obviously not, right? But come on, look at the way he's slinging. Look at the confidence he's given the Saints. The fact that I now believe in New Orleans. Screw it. I'm giving it to Tyler Shook. My defensive Rookie of the Year. I was going to give it to Schweissinger because I agree with you on everything you said, Craig. But I think Nick Emenwari's been somebody I've been impressed with for the majority of the year. Am I being impressed with him because of the system he's in and because of his level of individual performance? I think a bit of both, but I just think he's been a really key part in a very, very, very good defensive setup. So I like him. Ben.
As much as I'd love it to be Nick Emenwari, I think Craig's got the correct pick in Carson Schwessinger. I don't think any rookie this year has come in and had such an impact and such, as you said, that the playing time is ridiculous. He's a bona fide starter for the next however many years in this league for that Cleveland Browns team. I don't even know what round they took him in, but it was the second, for a second round pick to have that much impact. I mean, you touched on Travion Henderson, for you to get such positional value in the second round is just, it's great. And I know he's not playing for a great team and it's not the flashy pick, but I think it's the right one. And I'm going to give it to Ted McMillan in Carolina. He's, as you said, he's playing for a playoff team. This is the kind of one offensive award where I don't feel inclined to be quarterback favored. I love Jackson Dart. I've got Jackson Dart Ole Miss jersey inside. But I think this doesn't have to be a quarterback award. I would have loved to give it to Mecca Buka or Tyler Warren, but their seasons kind of fell off. So Ted Rowe has just been extremely consistent this year. So I'd give it to him.
I do have a dark horse for the defensive rookie as well that I almost put, but I just couldn't see him taking over Schweissinger. James Pierce Jr. at the Falcons, 10.5 sacks, and most of them towards this back end of the season. If it's like recency bias, he probably gets it, I think.
Well, I'm taking very much recency bias in my Tyler Shook pick, so it's not a shock. James Pierce Jr. is it's a second favorite in the betting as well, which is interesting. Maybe recency bias is probably affecting that. Right, before we touch briefly on college football, because I think Ben is going to spin us through the Oregon quarterback who I think is the current consensus number 2 overall pick, which is where the Jets are currently sitting. But of course, the playoffs and everything else can still change our view on that. Let's just look ahead to this week's slate of games. For anybody who hasn't got the full schedule, Rams at Panthers, Saturday 9:30. Then Saturday night, we got Packers at the Bears. That's 1:00 in the morning. Bills at Jags at 6 p.m. on Sunday. Kieran Boyle, I think, will be heading to that. We'll confirm that later on in the week. Then it's Niners Eagles at 9:30 on Sunday before Chargers at the New England Patriots at 1 a.m. on Sunday night heading into Monday morning before the Texans face the Steelers on Monday night. What do you think is the best of those games? What are you most looking forward to out of that slate?
I don't care about the NFL this week. I'm not playing. I thought I made that abundantly clear.
I'm trying to build up to this weekend. It's like if you were telling your friends you've got to watch one NFL game this weekend, which one are you picking? For me it's Bills Jags. Like not only because of the timing, but like the Jags having such a great home record, the fact that they're really hot, but the Bills are coming in. Josh Allen needs to prove that he's Superman. He needs to do it on the road in the one playoffs where doesn't have to face the Ravens, Bengals, or Chiefs, and he has Cook, who I think ended up the season as the running back with the most amount of yards, which is maybe slid under the radar, but I think that's a matchup for the ages right there. But I mean, if go on. Greg, what's the one NFL game you think you're really at? You're if there was a non-believer, you would tell them that's the one game you got to watch.
I kind of have three here. They're different.
See.
So you've gone Buffalo, Jacksonville, and I think if I had to choose one, it would be that for the exact reasons that you said. If you're a Giants fan, hopefully you can tune in and watch San Francisco trounce the Eagles. But I'll go for Green Bay, Chicago. I think that though the Green Bay Packers have stuttered a little bit, it's still a massive rivalry game up in the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers are going in to Soldier Field there. They're going to want their revenge. Chicago maybe didn't have the best outing at the end, so both teams are maybe looking at this one just to kind of take some momentum because they've completely lost it. I think this could be a real sort of back and forth kind of ding-dong of a game.
Yeah, so this is interesting for you, Ben. You say you don't care. You're sitting back and here for the vibes. If the Packers win, they're the ones going to Lumen Field next week. So maybe is that the result you want?
That's the last time I ever try pull up stats mid thing because I missed the start of that question. I would tend to agree. Bears Packers. I mean, look, it's one of the oldest rivalries in football. You didn't really get to see much in that game last week. That wasn't really the Packers. They were in the 7th seed, and that was it, and there was no changing that. So you're really going to get to see it this weekend. As I said, it's one of it's two teams that anybody can recognize around the world. They've been around for forever it is. So if you are pulling one of your mates into watching an NFL game this week, it'll probably be Bears Packers. I agree. If the Packers somehow pull up an upset and they wander in the Lumen Field, I'd love to see how we get on. If we're going for vendettas, I'd love to see a repeat of Panthers Rams, and I'd love to see that result be the same. I'm in the opposite end of Craig's spectrum. I'd love for the Eagles to come in and absolutely send the Niners home. But in honesty, it's probably Bears Packers or Jags Bills. I think it's just probably going to get the best football out of it that week.
You're saying that, but then the Eagles will end up coming into the Seattle in the NFC Championship game and sending ye home. So maybe that's not really the results you want. You're just not quite sure what way to read this. It is interesting you mentioned there about the Bears Packers and the fact that the Packers obviously didn't show up last week because they didn't play most of the players. The Bears did, but they still didn't show up. They ended up dropping one to Detroit. It'd be interesting to know the difference, how the difference of approach affects the difference in performance. Right. Last point here, Dante Moore is the quarterback for the Oregon Ducks. They're playing against Indiana in the college football playoffs this week. The college football playoffs are happening this Thursday and Friday evening. The Peach Bowl is between Indiana and Oregon. I think that's the one most people are looking at. The other game is between Ole Miss and the U. We're all about the U. Am I doing that right? Because there's people who are doing the sort of fingers, and it has to be the full hands, isn't it? Isn't that the full hands for the Miami U? I think it is. But people know about Mendoza. People know that he's the Heisman Trophy winner. People know the type of quarterback he is. People know that he talks so much about his offensive line, and they gave an offensive lineman the player of the game from the Rose Bowl a couple of weeks back. We don't know much about Dante Moore, even though he is, like most mock drafts have him going second as being the next New York Jets quarterback. What could we expect to learn from him in this game? Because if Oregon win this, it is an upset, and it could very much change his draft stock as we go forward into this draft season, Ben.
As you said, you're looking at probably the top two quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. I know Dante Moore is currently working on another year of eligibility, possibly, if he does want to run it back. in college football, and not be ruined by one of the teams picking in the top three. So if that's the case, so be it. But it's a high possibility that you're looking at the most pro-ready quarterbacks coming out of this draft. Dante Moore, I haven't been particularly impressed by him all season. He's done exactly what the quarterback of a high-powered Oregon Ducks team is supposed to do: come in and win convincingly. What the last few weeks have proven is that he can do it in big moments, and that's exactly what you would have to do in the NFL. Yeah, you're not coming in with you're now on par with the teams that you're playing, and you're not just coming in and playing low-end teams. You're playing NFL ready football, and I know people don't like to compare college teams to NFL. It's night and day, but it's the closest thing you're going to get to it. And going up against Indiana and the number one team in the country, and then facing off against who's probably going to be your competition for that number one pick. I think seeing how those two quarterbacks perform on the same field is going to be really telling.
What's interesting about Dante Moore is the fact that he wasn't really touted as being one of the better quarterbacks, and I think was it when they played at Penn State and he played a really solid game there, and people are saying, well, this guy's got the clutch gene, and that's been a big part of the sort of intangibles that people are talking about this. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Craig, or you just generally sort of building into NFL excitement knowing that playing this weekend.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm all in on the NFL side of things. I will try and catch some of the college games if I can. Normally on a Saturday, but I am intrigued by that Panthers game up first. So that will probably be where my eyes are glued.
Very much so. All right, that's it for this week's episode of the AV Club. Next week, and we'll be here. The wildcard round will be done. The divisional round will be ahead of us, and we'll be talking about either potentially Aaron Rodgers' last game as in the NFL if they lose, or the great success that is the Aaron Rodgers story as it comes in and does what he was brought in to do and break Pittsburgh's one and done hoodoo. So be interested to know what way that will work out. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL Show.